Good morning, all, and welcome. I'm pleased to stand in front of you this morning and announce the introduction of Kayleighs Law. This is a major event for Californians. Kayleighs Law will allow a judge the discretion to issue a lifetime injunction against a defendant at the time of sentencing for a serious felony, a violent felony, or a felony sex offense. Current law allows for temporary restraining orders or protective orders in cases of domestic violence, harassment, elder abuse, and other crimes to protect victims. California's crime rate is up over 13% compared to pre-COVID numbers in 2019. This number indicates potentially thousands of crime victims who continue to fear for their safety if they're not under court protection. This bill is critical to ensure that we are protecting the vulnerable members of our community from retaliation, continued violence, stalking, and harassment from their perpetrators. Under current law, survivors must repeatedly face their abusers over and over in court proceedings to get basic protections. This creates unnecessary and repeated trauma for survivors. This morning, we are joined by two victims who represent potentially thousands of crime victims who are seeking protective orders. Shortly, you will be hearing directly from Kayleigh, for whom this law is named. Kayleigh will talk about how this piece of legislation became law in Arizona and is now in my proposed bill for Californians. Kayleigh lobbied for years for the bill's passage in her home state in 2021, making Arizona the first state to offer lifetime protections for victims. In the year following its passage in Arizona, over 1,000 victims received lifetime protections from perpetrators. Kayleigh is here today to share her inspiring story and the significance of this legislation. Kayleigh, welcome.
Good morning. My name is Kayleigh, and it's really wonderful to be here in California today. I would like to first and foremost thank Assemblywoman Dixon for sponsoring this bill in the state of California. It's truly a blessing to work alongside you to ensure that victims in your state are protected from their perpetrators. As stated, Kayleigh's Law provides victims of most notably sex crimes, serious felony crimes, a violent felony crime, or felony sexual offenses, the option to petition the court for a permanent protection order restraining a defendant from ever having contact with them again. Kayleigh's Law initially passed in Arizona in 2021, and that is my home state. I'm so proud of our efforts to lead the nation in offering victims natural life protection from the person who has harmed them. I am also proud to say that Arizona is the 5th state in America to officially file Kayleigh's Law. Every 68 seconds, an American is sexually assaulted. In my quick 20-hour trip to California today, approximately 1,200 Americans will have fallen victim to sexual assault. I stand here today as someone who is part of that statistic. I was sexually abused at the tender age of 12 and 13 by my middle school PE teacher, who was also my club soccer coach. When I turned him in, the hell that followed was unbearable. But if walking through that hell meant saving one other victim from being victimized, then it was worth it. In 2020, 13 years after I turned him in, I was notified that due to his good behavior, he was eligible to have the terms of his so-called lifetime probation lifted, meaning that I would be left with no protection. This is how Kayleigh's Law came to be. Fighting for Kayleigh's Law across the nation has been a journey, to say the least. Jeremiah 29:11, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." No one should have to experience the things that I have had to experience, and no one should have to live in this hell, and that is why I fight. Victims endure so much, picking up the pieces from someone else's selfish actions. We are forever healing. As we pursue this protection for victims in the state of California, I hope and pray that we have your support, that victims have your support, and this protection will soon be available to them. I want to again thank Assemblywoman Dixon for her willingness to sponsor this bill, AB 1931. And to anyone who has fallen victim to being a crime in the state of California, know that I am always fighting for you, and I will never stop fighting for you because you still matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kayleigh. Your passion for protecting victims is inspiring and gives us all purpose today. Thank you. Next, I would like to welcome up to the podium Christy Van Waldberg. Christy is an Orange County resident who has turned her trauma into action as well. She is involved with local organizations to provide a space for healing and support for survivors. Christy.
Thank you, you're a little taller than me, Kayleigh. Thank you, Assemblywoman Dixon. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, and I'm a survivor of childhood sex abuse. I know firsthand the impact physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and financially it takes on a person and their loved ones. Just a crazy coincidence. It was 5 years ago yesterday that my identical twin sister and I faced our childhood sex abuser in court back in the state of Nebraska. I moved to California and have embraced this state as it's my own. We're raising our family there. And we were not able to seek justice personally, but we were able to see justice for someone else. The case was for another victim, and the statute of limitations prevented us from seeking legal recourse. However, we were able to assist the prosecution, and he is currently serving a 30 to 60 year in prison. When my sister and I were first sexually assaulted, it was between the ages of 7 and 9 on multiple occasions. The legal recourse and statutes prevented us from moving forward in our adult years. And so when I started healing from my own childhood trauma, it's not easy, and I want to use my personal experience to help others. Number one, I want to anchor in this new legislation that supports victims and holds those who abuse them accountable, partnering with the right legislators like Diane Dixon and her incredible staff. They have been an absolute dream to work with. Linking arms with organizations here in California who are ready to do so, to support survivors and may already be supporting this bill. I met Kayleigh 3 years ago, and I know that was a divine appointment. I knew immediately that California needed this law. We have been working together for almost a year to make this happen here with the goal of strengthening safeguards for victims throughout the state with this legislation. Kayleigh's Law, AB 1931, got a good ring, gives much needed and overdue support to victims and survivors by adding another level of protection for their healing and justice. We all have a divine right to be heard, feel safe, and be protected. Like many, we want to see an increase in legal advocacy for victims so we can swing the pendulum back, balance the justice process indefinitely for the good of our communities. And I shared a quote on my Facebook page 5 years ago today that basically resonates today with why we're here. Sometimes you don't know why God takes you through certain things, but I think now we know the purpose is for our pain. And so Kayleigh and I are just really excited. Thank you so much again to everyone that came today. And for all of those people that want to support Kayleigh's Law, please be vocal. Contact your other assemblymen and legislators. Let's make this bill and let's swing that pendulum back for victims and survivors statewide. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Christy. I am proud to work with both of you on this important bill. It's really time someone speaks up, and if it weren't for both of you, we wouldn't be talking here in public today and making this public record. Next, I would like to bring up another fighter for justice, Sergeant Jason Perez behind me with the Orange County Sheriff's Special Victims Unit to talk about how this bill impacts law enforcement. Sergeant Perez, please come forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. On behalf of Sheriff Don Barnes and the Orange County Sheriff's Department, I'd like to let everyone know that we strongly support this law. It is necessary that we make certain that victims are provided and protected by justice. Our laws prescribe a punishment and a sentence for those convicted by a violent or sexual crime. Unfortunately, the impact of being a victim of a crime lasts well beyond the conclusion of their criminal sentence. This is particularly true here in the state of California, where we've seen a reduction in sentences and the weakening of consequences. I currently serve as the supervisor for the Special Victims Detail for the Orange County Sheriff's Department. I also spent 3 years there as an investigator. During my time now as a sergeant, I supervise 10 investigators where they're assigned all sorts of sexual crimes, everywhere from rapes, child molestations, indecent exposures, and even now internet crimes against children. Throughout my career, I've interviewed countless victims where the interview reveals the pain and the damages caused by their perpetrator. And the one question and concern they have is what happens when the perpetrator gets out, and will he victimize me again? I'm sure, as you can tell, they dread when their custody ends and they're back on the streets. Of course, there are some convicted subjects who serve their time and attempt to get rehabilitated. The Orange County Sheriff's Department operates one of the largest jail systems in the nation. There, the sheriff gives them the opportunity to rehabilitate and leave their sentencing with some type of reform. But we also know that these convicted criminals, particularly those who are convicted of sexual or violent crimes, they do not reform, and they are released back into society with all of too short of a sentence. The California Department of Corrections did a recent study on recidivism. In April of 2023, they found out that 44% of those released committed a crime again. 68% of those subjects were rearrested within 3 years. These rates further support the need for Kayleighs law. And it is critical that we protect and let these victims know that they're safe, because that's what truly gets them their healing process. I believe that this law will help detour and make these perpetrators think twice about recommitting these crimes. On behalf of Sheriff Barnes and the Orange County Sheriff's Department, I'd like to thank Assemblywoman Dixon for championing this bill, and all of you that are advocating on behalf of the victims. Thank you.
And thank you, Sergeant Perez, for traveling from Orange County to share your impactful testimony. As our final speaker today, I'd like to welcome Anna Berry with Crime Victims United to share how this bill will impact victim advocacy.
Thank you. On behalf of Crime Victims United, I'd like to thank Assemblywoman Diane Dixon for including us today. Crime Victims United mission is to support and strengthen public safety, promote balance in the criminal justice system, and protect victims' rights. We think a few rights more important than the right of protection from one's abuser, and that's the crux of Kayleighs law. For those who've suffered from physical or sexual abuse, harassment, threats, stalking, restraining orders, also called protective orders, can offer a tremendous peace of mind by legally preventing abuser, not only from a physical approach, but also from texting, calling, emailing, messaging a victim via social media. While we admit that restraining orders aren't always perfect, they can be a powerful tool assisting law enforcement in protecting victims from those who mean them harm, physically, psychologically, financially, and otherwise. Kayleighs law takes into consideration the survivors of certain sexual, dangerous, and serious crimes need to be treated with special care, and provides these victims the option to obtain lifetime restraining orders against their past assailants. The importance of this long-term protection has already been recognized by 3 other states, and it's time California provides that same protection for its victims as well. And we here at Crime Victims United support that and are very appreciative to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you all for sharing your stories and professional testimony this morning. Kayleighs Law is critical to ensuring that our justice system provides necessary protections to victims and survivors of some of the most heinous crimes committed against women, especially. The necessity of this bill is compelling for victims of crime in California and reflected in the overwhelming bipartisan support this law received in Arizona, thanks to Kayleigh. I hope you feel this and see the same in California and the opportunities ahead with AB 1931. I thank you all for recognizing the significance of this bill. And in a way, it's sad and unfortunate that we have to legislate and protect our victims of crime, but yes, we do, because they still need protecting indefinitely. And I've learned a lot through meeting with Kayleigh and Christy and understand deeply how important this is to the lives of victims as they move forward to lead a successful life going forward. So I'll open up. We are all available for questions if you should have them, and this concludes this portion of the conference. So please feel free to ask questions. Thank you, and thank you for coming today.